Over the last 4 years, I've spent thousands of dollars and countless hours to get the Chickering concert grand behind me to sound like this. And now I've sold it to buy a piano that sounds like this. What was I thinking? Stay tuned to find out. Hello, this is Ben Blozan with Inside Pianos, and before I try to convince you that I haven't gone crazy, I just want to tell you that I've got a lot of exciting videos coming out. I've got the follow-up to my Wessel, Nickel & Gross video, the second installment of the vlog in which I'm fixing up an 1898 Steinway, and lots of other projects planned down the pipeway. But back to the topic at hand. As good as my Chickering sounds, and it is a gorgeous piano that I love and a lot of my clients really love, it still could sound better. And this is something that I want both for myself and to provide for my clients. Let me also pull the lens back a little bit and say that I have sort of two piano goals. I have the immediate goal of improving the piano sound that I'm working with, and then I have the long-range goal for a drop-dead piano someday, like a Steinway or a Fazioli, just an incredible piano that I am very far from being able to afford right now. So the problem with making more improvements to the Chickering is that the ones that I have in mind would require removing the plate. It also requires about as much money as I've put into the Chickering already. And you may know this, but it's pretty difficult to sell 9-foot pianos, particularly if they're not a super recognized name. And Chickering used to be, but is no longer. So you see where I'm going. There's no way I could get the money out of the Chickering that I would put into it for said improvements. So what have I gotten to replace it? Well, I recently fixed up a Baldwin Model L from 1959, and I was just so impressed with it. I've got a video out on it, and it's just got this warm, robust, sustained sound that I just kind of have really fallen for. And I was thinking, gosh, if I could have a 9-foot version of this, that would be awesome. And I'm sure many of you know, Baldwin really was a competitor right up there with Steinway back in the day. But since they're no longer a going American concern, they're not really in the public's consciousness. So therefore, you can get vintage or even not so old Baldwins for a very low price. And that's the route that I decided to take. Actually, someone who I met through my network that I've started to create online alerted me to the Baldwin that I actually got. So I just want to take this moment to say how much I appreciate viewers like you and people who are commenting a lot. And I just feel like I'm making these connections with people across the world, really, who are as into pianos as I am. At least almost. So it's now time to introduce you to my next concert grand piano. This is the piano that I will consider to be my personal piano, as well as the piano for Gate City Studios, my recording studio. I want to tell you a little bit about how this piano fits into piano making and music history, and then give you my first impressions having met this specific instrument. Now I say first impressions because once again I bought a concert grand piano sight unseen. I guess I'm trying to convince you I'm not crazy. I shouldn't have mentioned that. I did get it confirmed by multiple people that the soundboard was not cracked. And I also heard a recording of it in which I could tell, okay, those are original bass strings, those are original hammers, or at least they have to be close to it. I could go out there and see it, spend the money on the plane ticket, but honestly, just knowing that it's a Baldwin with a soundboard that's in good condition, and knowing that it would not sound well under that circumstances anyway, I went for it. You might be able to tell in my eyes I'm a little strung out because I just got this piano yesterday and I had a real hard time sleeping the night before it came, and then last night my mind was just racing. So I'm in a bit of a state right now. I hope I can be coherent. First of all, let me just tell you about this piano generally. It is a Baldwin SD6 from 1962, and in my opinion, this is kind of the sweet spot for a 9-foot Baldwin. I don't personally like the SD10s as much as the earlier SD6s, but this one also is not so old. The soundboard looks really amazing. That was another thing that I was struck with my other Baldwin, just how well the soundboard holds up. So I'm combining a really nice design with one that's, in piano years, at least middle-aged. And there are a lot of things that I can do to extend its life. One of the ways you knew that this was a great period in Baldwin's history, and I'm talking about the late 50s into the 60s, is that there was a large roster of really top-tier musicians and pianists who were Baldwin artists. And some of these artists got soured with Baldwin as it went into the 80s and 90s. I don't mean to keep dissing on later Baldwins. You can find some really fine examples of those. Part of it is my personal preference, and I do think that the build quality was just more substantial and more consistent back in the day, as it were. Bottom line, I'm thrilled to have a Baldwin from this era. So what do I think of it so far? Well, first I want to mention that the only thing that I've done is I've cleaned the case and done some vacuuming inside, and then I also tuned the piano. It actually was quite sharp. Some notes even registered as the next higher note on my tuner, and I just felt, even though I wanted to do a recording of it in its very original state, I just felt duty-bound to relax it down to pitch as soon as I could. So I've tuned it, I've cleaned it, and that's it. Let me give you a better feel for the full range of the instrument. Assessing the piano from that chromatic scale, you can hear that it hints at really great bass. But most of the bass strings are toast. Especially in that area. Moving into the plain wire section. Those are some hard, compacted, flat-topped hammers. That sound just comes at you. And it kind of carries for most of the piano. It's very percussive. There's not really much gradient in tone. They're sort of harsh to very harsh. As we get up here, though, I think because there was less hammer to get flat-topped, we hear hints of the sweetness of this could have. That's a pretty nice note, right? Clearly, one of the first items of business is to replace the hammers. Also, the bass strings are really ready to be replaced. I want to show you something really cool about this piano, or at least unusual. This has steel-wound bass strings in the trichord section. And this was done to create a more seamless break between the plain wire section and the wound wire section. Maybe it worked back in the day. The problem is that steel wound bass strings lost their tonal luster quicker than copper wound bass strings. These were going to be dead bass strings anyway. But the steel bass strings are even deader. while we're pointing out some unusual features of this piano, note also how there are tie-offs on every note of the lower or the middle treble section. I talked to one technician about this who thought it was more of a sales pitch than an actual feature, but what the line was that it helped with tuning stability. I think it's going to help with adding time when I restring it. And then look at this particular span in the treble area. Do you see how the bridge notching is not perpendicular to the strings, but rather is at a slight angle? What this was meant to do is to create slightly different speaking lengths, to kind of create more complexity, maybe also some impedance because the strings are vibrating at slightly different frequencies. But this is something that Steinway did back around the turn of the century, at least in their C and D models that I know of. Baldwin abandoned this when they went to the SD10, and it's possible that I might eventually recap this bridge, or at least that portion, and make it perpendicular notched. It's just easier to tune, and I don't know. It's just kind of what pianos have gone to. I feel like there's some collective wisdom that I can trust about that now. When you get a piano sight unseen, there are definitely good surprises and less welcome surprises. On the good side, I'm really, really pleased with the case. For being a church piano from 1962, it's kind of remarkable how well the case is preserved. Especially when I think of how neglected the insides of the piano were. They didn't extend that neglect to the case, fortunately. I'm also just simply pleased that it has the soul that I was hoping for. I mean, yes, it sounds pretty unruly right now, but I can you start to develop an ear for these things, and this will be a next level piano for me, for sure. I guess that's not really a surprise, but just a relief. On the negative side, there are a few loose tuning pins down here. It's not completely surprising, but that was not something I was able to tell from the recording. I'm planning actually to do 2 passes with this instrument. The first pass will leave the plate in. I'm not going to restring the entire piano. It'll be the bass strings, a ton of action work, total rebuild, and replacing the bass strings, as I mentioned. And as I do that, I will size up the pins just to kind of string it along until I get more ambitious with more of a comprehensive rebuild. And we'll see, but I'm thinking that'll happen in 2 to 3 years. So despite how the piano sounds today, I really do feel I have a diamond in the rough here. In just a few months, I expect to have a piano that will outperform the Chickering. And I specifically say outperform because there's something about the soul of the Chickering that I'm not sure that I can replace or improve upon. The Baldwin will just be different. And because the Baldwin is newer and of a stronger build quality, it will surpass the Chickering in those objective measurements, such as sustain and power. I mentioned at the top of the show that Baldwins are undervalued pianos, but still, relative to the Chickering, I have a much better chance of getting what I put into it out of it if I ever do decide to sell it and step up to another piano. You can be sure that I'll keep you updated on its progress. For now, let's just get a record of how it sounds at the beginning.